Hi, and welcome to another episode of Facts, Figures, and Fallacies from the Frontline podcast. Today, we are very excited. We have Cason Caraway joining us. He is from Caraway Team, Post Oak Realty. So he's a realtor in this area of North Texas, and we are super excited to have him. How are you doing today, Cason?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. We've all known each other for a while now, and kind of interesting to get in this deep dive. We always have these conversations, but only on like a few minutes before a meeting. So deep diving here might be fun.
Yeah, definitely. Well, some of the things we wanted to discuss today, just to put those out there early, we wanted to know the condition of the real estate market today. We were interested in what the market looks like through the end of the year and kind of what you're projecting. And then also how mortgage rates and other factors have affected the real estate market. So,
Yeah. Well, you pick one of those, and I'll take off with it.
so
And
yeah, maybe let's just start with maybe the condition of the real estate market today. Even you can even give us some backstory on kind of how you got into real estate to begin with and how it's changed over the years and kind of where we're at
yeah,
now.
well, that's a good story. It's funny because I'm the third generation realtor here in Decatur, which was my grandmother, 𝐶𝐶𝐫𝐿𝐵E. Everybody knew her. There wasn't very many realtors at the time. She she was the go-to at the time, and then my mother came along. My mother was a real estate agent for over 30 years, and she still is. She's semi-tired, if not retired, but she was she worked for Double Creek Capital, which would have been the Mark Duncombe and all them back in the day for a long time. Still as an agent, but helped a lot with commercial. So I watched that growing up. I mean, I never knew anything, didn't know anything other than real estate. So I remember always talking about real estate. And then towards the end of my high school, beginning of my college, she branched out and became an actual individual real estate agent and managed a brokerage here in town. And so she, was always actively in it. I think that's how she decided to pay for my college, whenever she got into the individual agent. And in commission sales, it's feast or famine, and she was really good at it, and she did really well. So I graduated college and did a few years of healthcare sales and in and out of doctors' offices, about 16 of them a day, and that was really eye opening and tough, and training. And of course, I started doing well, and people were noticing me, but I was building relationships in areas of doubt. Well, I'd say Grapevine, South Lake, Denton, and somewhat in Decatur, but with people that just wasn't going to, I didn't feel like it was going to benefit me for the long haul. I always wanted to get into real estate. My mother said I couldn't because I would work weekends and nights, and I would never be around my family. And she was right. It was a lot of work, and it still is a lot of work, and a lot of vacation work and things of that nature. But the relationship side of my business is my favorite part. So I am so excited to be moved back to Decatur in 2018 after college, and I've been here rocking and rolling in real estate, and started with building my own team called the Caraway Team. Built that up to where I have a good staff behind me with a partner for my farm and ranch. I've had some real estate partnerships and relationships, residential relationships, and then I have an office manager here on the square. And I eventually moved over to Post Oak Realty. I'm a part owner in Post Oak Realty West, which is the agents that are all west of 35. I'm a third owner in that portion of the company, and it's been a exciting opportunity for me because I never thought I'd be a part of that. And yet I have a group of brokers, which is Landon Hale and Ben Burnside, who are like brothers to me. I can lean into them, and we can bounce ideas off each other, and we can just keep momentum going. And they're great leaders, and we really enjoy it. So and Curtis Green, who's in the office here, we touch a lot of properties in farm and ranch, residential, commercial, and leasing. And so we've been doing a lot of, especially this year, I've touched every aspect of real estate, and it's been really, really fun because this market is not the same as it once was. So with that, backstory of who I am and what I came to be, I can kind of tell you I've got a pretty good pulse on the market here especially in Wise County. And
One thing that obviously I guess a lot of people like me have noticed is I moved into my home back during COVID, so the interest rates were very, very low, and so now they've kind of readjusted back to more of a normal interest rate, but I feel like people are still kind of getting used to it. And so we were wondering how that's affected you, if you've kind of been seeing more land sales versus residential, just kind of how the market's been the past couple of years ever since like interest rates got kind of back to that normal level.
Yeah, it's funny because you bought at and essentially at the peak of the value of the home. That was the highest you probably would have, unless you got a great deal on it. I mean, essentially, you bought at the top of the bell curve, in my opinion. Yes, your interest rate was lower, but now that bell curve has come down, your value, what you paid at that time, potentially is not skyrocketed. It has appreciated and gone up, but the demand has also gone down for that type of home. And I don't know exactly what you bought, but I'm just trying to visualize what it is. Now, you bought at the peak. It's kind of leveling out. It's growing, but it's not. There's not. There's data even showing how many showings it took before a home, on average, in Wise County sold. It's hard to get that data, but I do have some of that now. So if it's back then, it was 10 to 15 showings before and there was only average 6 days on the market. So that means a lot of people are going in there, a lot of competition. You're buying it for the low interest rate. Now that data is like not really that relevant because that was that spike. Now it's like we have average days on the market, for Decatur is in June, it was 61, which is really low comparative to where we were, because it was 90 to 100 in all the months before when it was supposed to be really, really good. So average days on the market are very high and average amount of showings is very low. The market is telling you that people are thinking about those interest rates and that payment where, they are nervous about purchasing that home a little bit more. So we see a lot more tire kickers is what we call them, where they're picking apart the home. They're really not that serious, but if they are serious and they do have our buyer, they're going to make an offer as long as that asking price is in a fair market asking price. You're probably going to get really close. I mean, typically I'd have to pull the data, but it could be up to 95% of your ask price, if you do it correctly, if you price the home correctly. So it's been a unique market. It's not 10 showings, it's 1 to 2 showings, and your offers sometimes your first offer is your best offer in this market. But we still are selling properties. It's just not like, as hot as it once was.
On the residential side, Cason, what do you feel like from the peak? What percentage decrease in home values would you say we've had just in Wise County?
I think right after the peak, it significantly dropped, but I don't even maybe 10% or so. I mean, it's not that crazy. It's just it goes back to people's perception of the market is their reality, I guess. But really, there's data showing that it's not as crazy as it really is. I mean, there's things just take longer, and they're not. You just can't price it what your neighbor got in 2021 or 2022. You just can't price it like that. So wipe those 2 years out. I mean, we're going up. We're doing well. We're having a great year. We've sold a lot. Things just take a lot longer and a lot harder to get the exposure. So marketing and getting the price right is the hardest part of the market right now.
So when you're pulling comps, all your comps are the most recent comps. So that's why it's adjusted back down.
Yes. The only thing I can pull, and what I will suggest, is pulling past 6 months. Past 6 months is the comps that I like to use, but it's hard to get that many comps in Wise County. So I have to branch out and make somewhat of a depreciation or a change to that comp. But really, you're supposed to go off of past. I do 6 months, and it's very difficult. Is if it's a house on 10 acres out in the county, or it's on 20 acres or 30 acres, everything's a little bit different. And that takes an experienced agent to kind of know, okay, well, the land value of this 26 acres on the market by itself might be this price per acre. Well, I kind of do that plus the price per acre of the home, or price per square foot of the home on 2 acres. And I have to start adding and subtracting. And then it's it's coming up with a value for a home in this market is very difficult, because you may pick a price and the market will say no, or the condition of the home is not as good as what the others are. So you have to make adjustments. And everybody wants top dollar. Everybody I talk to says, I don't have to sell. Everybody says, I'll just sit on it. We don't have to go anywhere. Whatever, all those things that I've heard for many years on listing properties, they all still say it, but they all know once it's on the market for 30 days to 60 days, the market has spoken, and the market will tell you exactly what your listing looks like compared to others. And the best information, unfortunately, for me to give to somebody if they don't trust my data up front is time on the market, because average days on the market is high. And it's just kind of, we're back to a market where it could take 100 days to sell your property, and it might sell for close to the asking price. But at that time, we started here and we come down to here. Should we have just listed it here at the first spot and got it sold in 10 days, or why did we do it 90 days? We could have just dropped it down to the price where it needed to be. So we've been aggressively trying to get sellers down to a price point where it's fair market value and aggressive, because that's your best marketing tool at this time.
Right. Are you seeing a lot of inventory? Has that increased significantly?
It's the highest it's ever been. Months of inventory for June of Decatur was 6.1 months of inventory. So then you look at, Cook's at 6, Montague's at 11 months of inventory, Wise County at 7. So that's many days of on the market potential for these homes. And, you look at, in June, Montague had 170 days for residential. 170 days in June of last year was 86. So
wow,
it's just, Wise County 110 days on the market. Last year is only 4 days less. So 114 days last year at this time in June. So it's just days on the market is very high. It's just nobody likes that, because you're having showings and you're having buyers come in and pick you apart and beat you up, and it can be annoying to a seller, but that's just the market that we're in. So it's our job as listing agents and brokers in the area to educate the sellers on what they're really up against and what the reality is, not what their neighbor got 4 years ago.
But what the buyers are paying per square foot today, obviously less than what they paid 2 years ago. Have we adjusted back to 2019 levels or worse?
Well, yes. Without running that data, it'd be hard for me to get that exact numbers, but it'd be close to that. 2019, I'd had my license only 2 years at that time, and but you got cost to build approaches, higher, lumber, windows, everything is up higher than it ever was. So, your data, whether it's new or old, price per square foot wise, it's gone up. It's not where it was and it also depends on how big the home we're talking. The higher the square footage of the home, the lower the price per square foot. Obviously, opposite of that if it's a lower square footage. So that's a tough one to give you there, Mincy. It's just that's a tough data point to pull, honestly.
Do you feel like fair values or actual sales prices are less than or greater than a replacement cost, whether it's a new or an older home?
New homes are very much fair on that. It is what it is to build, and there's some margins there that people up to get profit, for the builder. But people are getting very good market value deals right now on used homes, because the sellers, most of them, and not all of them, a lot of them have been rentals, and they've just bought them in cheap, and they've gotten a lot out. They've gotten everything they can for years of rentals. So if you're willing to come in and rehab a home, say kitchen, popcorn ceilings, whatever home you can think of. I'm talking across every county. You see these homes in town. If you can get them the seller convinced that it's not worth what they were worth, and you can get in there at a good deal, you're getting them way under market value, in my opinion. And then you can put in, 30 to 60,000 in updates, but then you're back to what the market value is. So yeah, you can get them cheaper, but you better know what you're doing to rehab these homes. And you've rehabbed and remodeled, and you get it. They are worth about the same after you put all that money into them, as in market value. But you can get some deals right now, and most sellers are pretty much understanding that the reason I'm selling it is because I don't want to replace the HVAC system. I don't want to replace the windows. I don't want to redo the kitchen. So they will come off to get it off the hands, get it out of their books. But yet the buyer is going to come in and redo that. And then I think that what they put into it's right back what probably the seller wanted or thought that the data showed that they wanted it. But the new buyer is now into a home that's going to last longer. It's going to appreciate quicker in value, in my opinion, is much quicker because of the remodel. They could sit on it for a year and a half or 2 years and then resell it with the updated kitchen, updated windows, updated everything, and it'll fly off the shelf versus the other one sat on the market for 100 days. Anything that's remodeled right now is a lot easier to sell. Anything that is where a home or a buyer can come in and start living in it right away are much easier to sell. It's not that like they sell for more; they just sell. I can sell them quicker and easier. And also, Curtis and I had a deal where house on some land that the seller was sitting on the market for a long time, and he represented the buyer, and they came in, and they're the only ones that, in my opinion, were capable of taking on that job, which is, everything from landscaping, painting to gutters to HVAC, windows, inside and out. But they have that time and the skills and the resources. Most 25 and under 30-year-olds and under don't have the resources, money, time, and effort or skills to remodel a 3,000, 2,800 square foot home on some land, because that's a lot of time, effort, and work. They're driving to Fort Worth every day to go work and make money. They don't have that time. They don't have the extra $60,000 in cash, and they didn't have a asset before that they could have resold to get that equity out and then put it into something else and remodel it. And they're using most of that equity as the down payment. So not every older homes are like my toughest homes to sell right now are like in Indian Trails or Seven Wires or Holly Ridge, all those homes that are amazing homes built in the late 90s or 2000s, and they're awesome homes. I mean, we all drove in there and thought those were great homes, and they still are. But the windows are 20 years old. The HVAC system can be 15 plus years old. Water heaters are very old. Fascia, paint, caulking, gutters, drainage, roof, everything is at its end of its lifespan. Well, that's a lot of money to reduce. So we're at a turning point where people aren't willing to completely come in and buy those homes, or not even. I feel bad for the sellers because they did all that. Like that was their generation. They updated all those homes and they did all that. They took care of it. The current buyer pool that I've been seeing and dealing with just don't love doing that. I mean, that's why this high density subdivisions that are coming into Decatur and all they're going to blow up. And yes, it's a different switch for the buyer mentality coming in here into our county here, actually.
Are the prices of the high density homes brand new, comparable to the older homes?
No, they're much cheaper and much lower interest rates. The big high density developers and builders are able to, whether almost, I'm going to say 1.5 cheaper in interest rates in incentives, that, or maybe even more, on an adjustable rate. The fixed rates are a certain interest rate, and the adjustable rates are going to be a certain rate, but they do have a discounted rate. And so that makes their payment cheaper. They're walking into a home that's brand new paint, brand new everything. They don't really have to mow and weed eat a whole lot. They don't have to weed eat around 6 acres of trees like you would in these bigger places. I mean, that's just in a lot. I mean, I'm sorry, I've said it. I think buyers sometimes they just want to come home and flop down on the couch and turn on their Netflix after a long days of work or whatever it is. There's a generation of that want to do that. Not everybody wants to come home and, clean out leaves out of the pool and weed eat, push mow this area, mow that back pasture. And it does make that sellability of that bigger home harder. And the new inventory of the high density, homes like Indicator is going to do very well, in my opinion. And the prices are very low in comparative to what we thought they'd be, 300s, and to 400. And you get a really nice home that where people used to care about, hey, is that crown molding, or is that, how tall are those wooden baseboards? What type of flooring? Is that quartz or is that granite? Now it's like, hey, it'll work. I'm only going to live here for 5 years or 6 years or 4 years, and then I'm on to something else if there is another opportunity. And this money's tight, as you know, in people's pockets, and they get a really good bang for their buck in those high density homes right now.
So would a high density home, brand new, how would that compare to a home, in town, in an older subdivision, but still, maybe a 10-year-old? Are those houses?
That's a good question. And unfortunately, they're about the same price.
That's what I thought.
To a seller, they think that home is still worth 300, to 285, but a buyer can come in and get a DR Horton home for the same price, brand new, lower interest rate, lower payment, no maintenance for a long
10
time.
years.
I mean, 10 years. I mean, they won't have to touch the outside of that paint of that house for, they say 7 to 10. I guarantee it's longer if they, keep it clean and whatever. But I mean, and I go up to these homes, and unfortunately these older homes, and first thing I do is I walk up, I'm starting to look at the paint on the fascia right before where the roof and transitions and the gutters, and you're just like, this hadn't been painted in 12 years. You can just see it, that. And so, it's just a lot harder, to sell those because of cash in people's pockets. And y'all know a lot about that. It's, there's not a lot of extra cash to bring to those homes. And sometimes if you have enough cash, you're potentially putting it down to buy down a point, so it keeps your monthly mortgage down.
Right. So those high density homes, do they have the special utility district tax on it?
I think they all do now. Yeah, I mean, they're wrapping that into that somebody has to pay. I mean, the developer takes that on, but that's getting passed on to somebody somewhere. And
so if you buy in that area, you're going to get a better deal on a home, but your property taxes would be higher.
I mean, like I said, that all starts with the developer, and it is going to be passed down to the consumer. But yeah, it's going to be wrapped into the asking price or into the taxes. And so there's two different options there, but yeah, that's going to happen. But buyers don't care. They don't know about that.
Right.
I mean, most don't. I mean, way high majority do not care about that. As long as they just need to know, how much do I bring to the closing table and for my down payment, and what's my monthly payment going to be? And that's all they care. And those high density developers, when I say high density, if the consumers don't understand, I'm talking, 5,000 square foot lots, maybe even, it's up to new. Now they've changed it to 8,000 to slow down some of the growth here in Decatur. But yeah, I mean, that's a lot of homes on a small piece of property, and they're trying to fit in as many homes as they can in that acres.
Right. Do you know how many of those subdivisions we have in Wise County? New ones?
Yeah, it'd be different subdivisions would be four that I'm aware of coming, and those are, they said it's back in the day, it was over 2,000 doors, including apartments coming. And that's a lot of doors. There's one deal I'm representing the sellers on, Curtis and I, and it's going to be 670 lots, I believe. And, I've heard of the 300s. I've heard of another, it gets up to 1,000 doors in new construction homes and on small lots. Then there's some apartment complexes at 200 doors at a time usually. And that, that throws a lot of people in our city and on our streets and in our schools. So in a short amount of time, 3 years, I think it'll be rolling. And so happy to see the D.R. Horton development that they're doing behind Walmart. It's a very nice, and they've. I want people to go in there and drive in there and see that they did a good job. That the city worked with them well, and the conformity is really nice. It fits in well. It looks good. I think that'll be a really nice place for not only, middle-aged to first-home buyers to even, elderly needing a place to just not take care of 6 acres or 10 acres anymore. I think it's a nice thing to have for our community, and
Yeah.
there's more coming.
I just wanted to ask, earlier we were talking about inventory was up now. And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it true that for a lot of years, Wise County specifically was very difficult to find inventory in? So now they're building so many apartments, and these national companies are coming in building these subdivisions. Is that just to keep up with the growth, or truly are that many people moving in, or are they kind of getting ahead of themselves a little bit with it?
Oh, they're forecasting what's coming, and yes, they pay engineers and forecasters to figure out what will work and what they suggest they should do for this area. And the guys that we, talk to who are high density developers, they're not. I asked them, I don't even know, a year and a half ago. I was like, well, what's on your why Decatur? And they just felt like it's the next corridor. I mean, it has nowhere else to go. All eyes are on Wise County right now. They are not going to stop until they keep coming. I mean, I firmly believe that it's all coming. It's going to come up to 87, and they will do anything they can as long as they can get water and sewer to their developments. It's not going to stop. So Decatur knows this. The city of Decatur knows this now, and they've, got bombarded with 3 to 4 developments all at one time, opportunities, and so that's a market data, that's forecasting, that's trends, that's sales for these builders. I'm speaking mostly to developers. I don't represent the builders, but the developers that are coming and buying the land that I usually have listed or can help them with. They are just all in on finding something because they see that the numbers work. I mean, there's profit for them, there's profit for the builders, there's a demand that people probably don't see it or feel it or think that we need it, but there's data showing it somewhere. And, kind of that saying, if you build it, they will come. People will drive until they can afford. So people will move out of Denton, North Fort Worth, other areas, and drive an extra 30 minutes to afford the home that they need to drive. That's all that it really is I've said it before. If they live in Decatur and drive to the Metroplex to work, that's essentially one long podcast, and they're there to work and they're back. And so that's their right. And now that's why we did so well. Curtis and I did so well up in Sunset, Montague County after COVID or during COVID, because people were working from home in land sales, and they were like, well, we'll buy an extra 20 more minutes. So now they're driving 50 minutes, but gas was cheaper then. Everything was cheaper at that time for those short couple years. And so people were buying like crazy 20 minutes further north of Decatur into Alvord and Sunset, where now it's pretty tough sell, honestly. In Montague County, it's got a really high days on the market stuff up there. And long story short, people will drive until they can afford.
Right.
Afford.
Yeah. So a significant portion of these homes are going to commuters.
Mm-hmm.
I know we've had.
I mean, you got Decatur EDC has done a great job with bringing in, as many jobs as they possibly can with the industrial park out on FM 2264. But I mean, they're not bringing thousands of homes or jobs in. They're, Cardinal Paint, that diesel company. I mean, they've done good at that, and they will continue to try to grow that, and that will help. But there's no way people like, that there's just not enough jobs for them to live here. They're going to have to drive. I mean, they could work for co-ops, whatever. I mean, in Denton, there's a lot more jobs in that area. So they're willing to drive that extra 30 minutes to get into an affordable home where their payment is affordable and the condition of the home is nice.
Right. And what does the rental market look like with all of these additional housing?
It's actually doing really well. I don't know what happened, but the market for I guess the rental market is just really good. I mean, I haven't heard anybody struggling to get places rented. We've rented a few this year for some clients, and that was a pleasurable, process for me that I didn't used to do. I never had to lease properties residential for clients, and in a market like that we're in, as a real estate agent, I was willing to take on and do anything just to keep income coming in for me. And so I was leasing residentials. I've been leasing a lot of commercial, and I've been doing pretty well with that. I'm happy about that, but I think that the demand's pretty high. People do not have that extra cash to bring to a closing table to buy buy a house, and there's not a lot of, they may even be struggling financially where they can't get approved for the loan that they need. Whatever it is, the money's tighter, and so a rental for a couple of years or a year is what they're doing, and so rental market's been doing really well here in Decatur.
So no vacancies indicator that you know of, or very few?
Very few. I mean, it does take a few showings, and I watch my clients and my brother, they lease them up pretty quick. Everything that I do hear of doesn't sit for very long. I mean, when you get in, the thing here right now is just trying to make sure you get a good renter, a good one, and it's because, as a bad renter can really derail your profit for that
Yes.
for that home.
Oh, so you were talking about that it's a tough market. What do you think it would take to turn it around?
I always feel like that the buyers just don't want to be almost labeled as the ones that were dumb and bought during this market. Well, I think that's kind of been, it hasn't changed for a long time. I mean, years of, if anybody's been waiting because they just didn't want to be made fun of by their uncle or why'd you buy in this market? Well, that market has not gotten any better, and interest rates haven't came down. So if it would change, obviously when we got up into land price, interest rates up at 9%, that's just tough. I mean, there is not a lot of people willing to do it, and not a lot of people have that extra money on land just to buy it and let it sit right now, because that interest rate is eating them alive, and the appreciation of that land isn't just skyrocketing. So their interest is there actually a win unless you just are buying it for your own family use or your own recreational use, and you're not losing money, but you're not gaining money either. So I think interest rates are very important to our success in people's perception of the market, because we're still selling, people are still buying and trading real estate. But I tell you what, our interest rates, investors are going to come back and because there's money to be made once you buy it, instead of it, the numbers just don't quite work out because of the monthly interest on that.
Right.
So interest rates would be my answer.
Okay. And as far as forecasting, put on your magic hat. What would you predict would be, or what are you expecting might be the bottom of the market as far as prices? So you said a lot of people are sitting on the sidelines. They're waiting. They want to see they want to see it bottom out, like maybe just a really significant drop. What do you see coming?
Well, I think that it's now. I think the lowest that you're going to see it is now. I think that, and it's all dependent on the type of home. So back to that home that's 3,000 square foot on 6 to 10 acres. That is or even 3, whatever. That is a very tough sell right now. And in order for that home to get sold, if that seller has to sell it, say kids are moved out and they don't have any more size, or it's just too big and they don't need that size anymore, they're going to be at the lowest point that they're probably going to get, unless, so as a buyer, that if you knew that would be the time to make offers that would helpfully incentivize them. Just say, you know what, we've had a great time living here. It's time to get out of this home. We didn't make that extra $200,000 like we could have 2 or 3 years ago when the demand was much higher. I think that's going to be right now for a lot of those bigger homes and the older homes. And I don't think there's going to be a bottom for the new inventory. Those homes will have to be 20 years old before those homes start getting lower in price. It's just going to continue to go up, because once you sell one and those builders and developers know that they're getting that price. Well, we got it there. Can we go this? And they're just going to keep testing it. And as long as buyers keep buying that, it's never going to go down. The only ones that are going to go down is the older conditioned homes, land that's not, been touched or improved of any way. That's a tough sell. People just can't see that vision. So, improved land, ready to go land is easier to sell. And then also commercial, you've got to have strong tenants in that, and your cap rate has to be high, and your asking price has to be fair, because there's not a lot of buyers that are going to be taking on that risk to continue being, taking on a project that's going to potentially lose money. So there's got to be a lot of security in commercial right now. But it's funny because I'm saying it's at its bottom, but we've been steadily going up. So it's kind of here. It's funny to say that right now. I believe in the future that it's going to get better. There's no way it can't. People's perceptions of the market is just going to accept it. And we're like, you know what? If we're going to be buyers and sellers, it is what it is. We can't wait to see what's going to happen, because we've already waited and nothing has happened. Nothing is ever going to be like it was at 2.5% to 3% interest rates. I just right. Don't think I'll ever see that in my career. I just don't think in my career I will see that, 13+%. I hope I never do, and like people did in the 80s, and people were buying homes at very high interest rates. I didn't see that. And I've been, blessed to have that opportunity of seeing really good, strong market and good interest rates. But, come on, 5-7% is not as crazy as it could be. And
right.
But yes, seeing it at 3, it's gone. That ship is sailed.
Mm-hmm. All the high density home building, how is that affecting the commercial or the custom builders? Are those still real popular? Plenty of sales there?
I think that doesn't hurt them as much as, they don't want to be in that game. Custom home builders are a rare, amazing, person, because you're dealing with a lot of changes and emotions and, financials. And so they do really good. That high density, there's no real changing of the spec sheet. It's going to be whatever it is, you're buying it for that. So there's no emotion. There's no, people changing. You're right in the middle of a build. But the home builders that are in the market right now, I don't feel like they're going to be affected, because the biggest thing that's going to affect them is the availability of development, 2-acre lots and 10-acre tracts across our county, which our Wise County has made it pretty difficult to get those approved. And so if you look in the market right now, there's just not very many 2-acre developments, and there's not very many 10 acres. There's darn sure there's not any 5 to 6 acre developments in the market right now. So it's very difficult to get 2-acre lots for these consumers to buy, and then to call the local spec home or local custom home builder to get a custom built home going on. I think that's probably the biggest change in our market is the Wise County rules and guidelines around 2-acre developments, and how hard it is hard, and it is difficult. I understand why they're doing it. It's for, safety, and, drainage, water drainage, ingress, egress, fire safety, all the things that they have to do to protect safety for our people. But it was pretty easy for these guys, local guys, 5 or 6 years ago. And that's why there was a ton of 2-acre developments. Now that's so hard, I believe that that's going to hurt our custom home builders, because there's just not going to be availability of 2-acre lots for these consumers to buy. And so when they are, it's just going to be different for a little bit. We're going to have to get caught up, figure that out, and, get that going again. But it's been difficult for the 2-acre side.
And 2 acres is the minimum before, without putting in utilities and paved roads in.
Correct. 2 acres is the minimum for the water well and septic to be installed, in the spacing between the two. And that's the minimum. Anything under 2 acres would have to require some type of water source of sewer line, or a water source and then you can drop it down to 1 acre. But what that's doing is it's just encouraging more high density developers to come in and maximize that asset, or maximize that piece of dirt to the fullest by paying at the developer's expense to run sewer and water to that property. And then they can take it from what we could have been 2 acres, 3 acres, 10-acre development. Now these high density buyers on 100 acres or whatever it is are going to try to put 300 homes on the 100 acres versus it could have been, a bunch of 2-acre tracts. So
Right.
It's just tough. I mean,
They kind of had the advantage because when they put in a high density subdivision, they can pass along the cost of all of the utilities and the roads to the buyers. Where a custom home builder, even if he wanted to do the development, it doesn't have that option because there's not enough homes going in.
You would love to pass that on, but there's a much less of a margin, and when it's only 2 acres, like the profit share is maybe, it's just not enough spread there on your ROI, and the risk is much higher. So it's just, they're not taking that risk right now because the money's tighter, risk is higher, and the interest rates are higher. But for those big high density developers, bring it on. What do you got? We'll take it because they've got the backing and they got the experience, and they just got the capital and experience to get it done.
And volume
will get it done for sure, and they'll make their money back. They're not doing it. They're not coming this way because as one developer said, he doesn't need any more practice. He's coming to get it done, right? So they're here to, and they spend a lot of money in due diligence, and they will, while they're under contract or while they're in the development process, it is way more money than the 2-acre development would ever spend. Way, as you can imagine. So
right. All right. Well, it sounds like we've got a lot of exciting growth and opportunities for every home buyer, I guess, all different price ranges. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, there's a market out there for somebody. We can find you something for sure, whether you're, first time home buyers to experienced or development. There's opportunities that are coming, and I definitely believe that there's going to be a good opportunity for all aspects coming up if we can just get somewhat of a change in the market, maybe even those interest rates. But I believe Decatur is in a good spot. Anything in Decatur, anything in Wise County, you're in the path of what's coming for sure.
Okay, and Cason, if anybody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to contact you?
Well, I believe, you can find me on mostly all social media platforms, whether it's, Cason Caraway, my individual pages, or Caraway team. And then I do have an office downtown Decatur off Main Street, 206 West Main Street. And then my phone number, easiest to my office, is 940-399-5990. So.
All right.
All righty.
All right. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Jason.